Hello, this is Dan. Welcome back to my Rigify tutorial series. We're in part 7E, and we're going to continue on with weight painting. In the last tutorial, we went through and cleaned out some of the oddities that happen when we auto-weighted our mesh to a rig, and now we are going to fine-tune those weights to make our deformations good. So it's pretty easy workflow, actually. Basically, I'm going to cut this down, so I'm going to rotate things in a specific axis, and I'm basically only going to work on the deformations that are happening between two bones at a time here. So I've mentioned before that I prefer to use FK controls when I'm weight painting, and that is not because I prefer FK over IK in any way when I'm animating. Anyways, I prefer to use the tool that's best for the job, but when I'm weight painting, FK controls have a advantage here, and that is because I can isolate my controls to a specific axis. So if I type R, Y, Y with my hand, FK hand bone, I can just get my Y rotations. If I type R, Z, Z, I can isolate it on our front and back axis here. R, X, X is going to be up and down. Now, a few things we need to keep in mind when we're manipulating our rig is we need to stay within what's possible for actual human, what's possible for our humans. So if I type RZZ, it doesn't do me any good to twist my hand 90 degrees this direction when we can only really go between 30 and 50 degrees this direction and about 20 degrees towards the thumb here, that direction. So human anatomy is something we need to keep in mind. So there's actually a very good tutorial that I found that deals with human anatomy fundamentals, flexibility, and joint limitations. So I'm actually going to put this in, I will add this link to this tutorial in my description so you can check this out for yourself. Let me just go through very quickly and talk about some of the things that are covered here. Let me see here. Alright. Our neck. This pretty much lays it out very clearly on how much we can rotate our neck. So 70, 90 degrees down, 55 degrees up, and 35 degrees side to side. And that's an interesting one there we need to keep in mind. Of course, how our hand rotates. As I mentioned before, 20 degrees towards our thumb and only 30 to 50 degrees towards our pinky direction. So we need to keep all of these ranges of motion in mind when we're posing our character, so we're not going outside the realms of what's possible. Here's a very interesting one about the limitations when you lift your leg straight up. If your feet are pointing straight forward, you can only go to about 55 or 45 to 50 degrees. But if you point your feet outward like this, that's what allows you to do the splits. So like I said, this has got a lot of good information here, and a lot of these rotations is what I pretty much stick to when I am weight painting. So it doesn't do, like I said, it doesn't do any good to go outside of the realm of what's humanly possible when we're weight painting and posing our characters. So just before I get out of this is the lovely young lady who created this tutorials. I'm not going to say that name because I just don't want to get it wrong. I owe her a lot, and for that I am going to stay away from trying to say her name wrong. So like I said, I'll give this link in our description later. Let's get back to our blend file here. One more thing that I want to talk about before I actually get in here is you'll notice, and you've probably noticed already, that Rigify uses Quaternion rotations on a lot of our rig controls that have to rotate in multiple directions. And the reason for that is Quaternion rotations have some advantages over Euler type of rotations where we don't have to worry about gimbal lock, and also they always interpolate very smoothly and predictably without having to do a lot of switching between all of these different Euler rotation modes. So I'm not going to get into this too much. A lot of things, or one thing that actually kind of scares people away with Quaternions is this extra W value. So we got W, X, Y, and Z. So don't worry about these values if you don't understand them. If you just have your mouse in our 3D view and have something selected and you're using Quaternion rotations on that control, you just type R, Y, Y, negative 90, and you can see you still use degrees and you don't have to worry about these weird values. So I do recommend that you look up Humane Rigging by Nathan Vigdal, who's also the author of Rigify Rig, and in that tutorial, Humane Rigging, he has a chapter pretty much dedicated to Euler axis and also Quaternion rotations. So very important to learn that stuff. Quaternion rotations, after you learn about them and learn how to animate with them, they're actually very easy to understand, and those odd numbers will not deter you. So a lot of other controls, like our forearm, if it only is going to rotate on a single axis, it will use Euler rotations, and for those type of controls, we can just type 90 degrees in there. So again, no problem there. Let's clear this out. Alright, let's get back to our hand and start taking these rotating these and cleaning up our weights. So our YY -90, I'm just going to rotate my hand 90 degrees, and you can see a very ugly deformation happening there. I'm going to select my mesh, go to our object data panel, which is this cube icon, go to display. I'm going to turn on wire and draw all edges, just so I can see my topology and see what's happening when I'm posing here. And you can see that that is pretty ugly. Now I've actually shown how to fix our wide rotations with this 2-bone deformation system in another tutorial, but it's worth going through it again. I prefer to go through and fix these wire rotations on our controls first, so that's where I will start. I'm going to go weight paint mode, quickly talk about my tools. I'm just going to use a single brush to subtract one, even though I'm using my blend type as add, so I'm going to be adding weight here. If you would like to switch brushes, go ahead and do that. I'm going to use auto normalize, and under options I'm going to use x-axis mirror because I still have a full mesh, and also I'm going to use this show zero weights. Let me select a bone here, so I don't have this constant blue where there are 0 weights. It's going to turn black if I feel it's far easier to see the weights. So alright, as I mentioned, I've already shown this technique in an earlier tutorial, but I'll just show it again. Basically what I want to do is fix this twist between these two bones. So when we rotate our hand, we're actually fixing the twist in our forearm. So these two bones. Alright, now I'm just going to pick a single line, and with very low weights, here I've got weight of 0.025 and my strength is at 1. I am in add. I'm going to just gently paint some influence to get this line to be a little bit smoother here. So I'll just jump back and forth between these two forearm bones and paint some influence from this back one towards the wrist. Just straighten this line out, make it look a little nicer. Again, jumping back and forth between these two forearm bones. I'm just going to gently massage that line here. So now that I've got that single line, that looks relatively decent to me, I'm going to go to edit mode, and let me see here. Might want to add just a little bit more to this area. Let me see here. Yep, that looks pretty decent. I'm going to go to edit mode and finish this off. So this is that line that I just painted in weight paint mode. I am now in edit mode. I'm going to use Alt to select the loop that goes all the way around. This is the vertex on that line. I want to make that active. You can see it's white. That means that's the active one. I'm just going to click normalize all. It didn't change anything, but I just like to make sure that I'm covering all my bases here, and I'm going to copy that weight all the way around that loop. So I'll just rinse and repeat, Alt to select the whole loop, make sure that that one's active, normalize and copy. Very quickly here, we're going to get a very nice base to work from for our wire rotations. And one more time, though, this actually has something to keep in mind here. This has some weights very low to the thumb, and I don't want to have my thumb, I don't want to copy those all the way around, so I'm just going to actually delete that out of there. Normalize and copy that. Now, don't have to worry about the backside of my wrist having influence from my thumb bone here. Something to keep in mind if you're doing that. Alright, let's go back to edit our weight paint mode here and check out our deformations. Our YY. I'm just going to type Z to get in the flat shading again. There we go. And I think you'll agree that that looks far nicer than what we originally started with. So I'll actually do this for the next one in our chain here, which is our, see the next bone in the chain is actually the forearm bone, but that only rotates on a single axis. So that's what's going to give us our elbow bend here. that would be these two bones. If we go up to our upper arm, type R, Y, Y, -90, spin that hand up around. Let me make sure that's squared out here. Yep, hand is squared out. And you can see that ugly deformation in between our upper arm deformation bones. So again, same process. We'll just quickly paint this. I'm going to pick this line, I think. Paint this over, spin these vertices around a little bit. And let me see here. I'm going to go backwards as well. I don't want to get too far up into the shoulder, so I think I'll probably cut this off right there. You see. Again, we just want to, from our shoulder, or upper arm bone here, the end of it, all the way down to the crotch of our inner, our elbow would be here, the crotch of that, of our, in between our arm here. I don't know if crotch is the correct word for that area, but I think you get my point here. So basically, once again, just painting one single line to smooth that out. I will then tab into edit mode. I'm going to do Z to get out of wireframe. Let me see, where's that line at? It's right down there. I'm going to do Alt, select it. Again, normalize and copy all the way down, making sure the one we painted is active. So we're copying the right one around. And I think I'll do the rest of that manually here. You select that Control, Alt GRS, so RYY, and we get a better twisting deformation. Pretty easy. Alright, well, I'm not going to actually go through all of these bones in real time. I'll just stick with this arm here to show you the process. So now that we've taken care of the Y rotations, our twisting is taken care of. Let's get back to our ZZ, select our hand again, and pose it and make sure that our range of motion is looking good. Now, I actually don't see anything that I don't like if I'm staying within the realms of what's humanly possible here. It's only when I get really far out that I see anything odd. So I think I'm going to leave that alone. So let's actually do RXX and get this. So we know from that tutorial that we can go about 70 degrees up this way and about 90 degrees, 80 to 90 degrees down. Now I'm actually getting quite a bit of squishing here right at the wrist. So this is one of the things that I'm really trying to fix when I'm weight painting is volume, the volume loss here. So if I rotate this down, you can see how it's kind of squishing in here. So volume loss, and also making sure that if I go, I'll probably have to go to an extreme here to show this, RXX. I want to make sure that my mesh is not really intersecting. So it's not like if I go to wireframe here, well, I might need to go into edit mode in wireframe. You can see how the hand is kind of pushed into that mesh of the forearm. I don't want that. I want to try to prevent that. Now, of course, I've added extreme rotation here, so that's why that's happening. But volume loss and mesh intersections is what I'm really trying to avoid. So let me get this volume loss here taken care of. Now, I think if I select this bone, there's not a lot of influence on that wrist. If I just add some to it, if I go to the side view here, you can see it's kind of pushing up, getting some of that volume back here. Let me actually push this down as well. Again, very low weights, and I'm just watching my topology and the way all of our lines kind of work together here. And I think that looks better. We can do RXX and go up. Yep, I don't see quite the volume loss here. Now, it's never going to be perfect, but this is the process. We just want to make our topology look good when we're bending everything. Anchor those vertices to either the hand bone or the other bone in the chain, which would be our forearm O2.L in this case. Let's see here. I want to go back that up a little bit. This one, go forward, drag it that way. There we go. So that's basically the process. I think that looks relatively good. Oops, Alt R. We'll recheck our other axes. Make sure we didn't screw anything up too bad. And it seems to be okay. RXX. There we go. We get some, don't have quite the volume loss there. If I get RXX and type that actually instead of Z. Alright. That looks much better. So now we can just continue on down our chain of FK controls here. This next one is only going to rotate on the X-axis. So the bones that we need to worry about are just these two. Our lower, the second bone in the upper arm and the first bone in our forearm. I've actually shown this in another tutorial as well. How I just want to kind of straighten these out. See how this line kind of starts getting moved over here. I'm just adding some influence to this bone to pull these vertices around with it when I rotate that arm around. Now something that can, if you're facing your body mesh here, you can accidentally paint in other areas here. Let me just undo that. So if you need to mask an area, you can use these masking tools. So if I just click this, this is our face selection, and currently I can't add anything. I need to actually select some faces and just kind of click on them, and by holding shift you can get multiple faces selected, or you can probably just use box select as well. And now I can't paint outside of that selection, but I can isolate this, so if I'm facing my body I can't accidentally paint on things that I shouldn't be painting on. So very nice option to use down here. And this other one that's right next to the face selection is vertex selection. So you can see that you can select certain vertices if you want to isolate those as well, and again you can box select a bunch of them at once as well and isolate your painting to that specific area. So that's actually going to come in use quite a bit when you get into the face. I just want to point out these options here. Let me actually just turn this off, and I'll just try to be careful. Alright, again I'm just watching my topology, see how much everything is being affected by the weights, and when I'm posed to I have my armature posed, I just kind of want to fix everything to look good. It's actually pretty easy, not too hard. Now I just want to make sure that this elbow is more squared off. Go X. Now you can't move your, that looks terrible when you go back, but you can't move your hand back there, so we don't have to worry about it. So there we go. I think that's a relatively decent starting point for our elbow. Now we've already done our Y rotations for our upper arm FK control. Let's do our Z, which is our up and down, and our XX, which would be our forward and back. So first thing that I'm seeing right off the bat here is it looks like I'm pulling a lot of vertices a little bit too far up in the neck here. So let me select that upper arm, and you can see that there is some influence pretty far up there. Let me go to subtract and take out some of that influence. Probably pick this line about right there. Get rid of some of this influence here. It's not pulling those vertices, and I probably don't need to pull vertices on the back here by the scapula. And also affecting, it seems like it's affecting too much into this armpit area. I'll just take some of this out. Now, just like our last my last tutorial where I'm using the clean function, if you're going to take a lot of influence off an area, I would go to edit mode, select all your vertices, and also use the clean tool here. So clean this out, make sure that it's deform pose bones only, and just clean those zero weights, and there we go. Now that's going to clean that out. I've got a nice clean vertex group here. Now this deltoid area seems like it's flattening out a little bit, so I think if I select my shoulder, which is the next bone in the chain from my upper arm here, these are the joints that we're worried about right now. I think if I add some weight to this upper part a little further over, whoops, I need to go to add. I'm in subtract mode right now. It's going to round that out and kind of anchor it so it's not allowed to pull, and yeah, and you can see when I add that, it's kind of rounding it up. It's kind of holding it in that direction. So our ZZ. Now we don't have to go up this direction, because if you know anything about anatomy, once you get to this T-pose area, you actually can't rotate your arm up any further without involving your shoulder. So you have to first go like this before you do that. So I'm not going to even worry about that right now. I'm just worried about the transition between these two bones, and again on a specific axis. Right now I'm doing Z. I think that looks a little nicer. So this is the process, joint by joint, adding weights, subtracting weights between the two bones that are being affected, and very quickly you should be able to get through the whole body here. A couple more notes here that I want to talk about. Let me actually just get to object mode here, get out of wireframe. There's some areas, say the chest, when we're doing a RYY, by default, if we rotate our chest, you can see that our spine is actually rotating. So let me select that controller, and you can see there's an auto rotate spine. You may want to turn this off, because this is going to give you kind of a false sense of what's really happening. If you turn this off, then you're getting only this rotation between these two bones. So in this case, you don't want to go to the extreme that you can rotate, because you're trying to isolate that. Go about halfway. I think this is about 70 degrees that you can rotate that around. Go about RYY 35, then rotate, then weight paint this and fix it so you get a nice smooth deformation. Ultimately, the only thing that's really important is that this actually looks good when you're done. So you might want to turn off auto rotate in this instance when you're doing your torso. And another situation where you'll find this, I just clear everything out here, is when you rotate your head, our neck is by default is set to auto rotate. So basically it's doing an even rotation between our chest bone and our head bone. So you can see it's about halfway in between these two. So you might want to temporarily turn this auto follow off so you can isolate what's happening between your head and your neck, and also between your neck and your chest. So I just wanted to point that out really quick. But I think I've actually given you all the tools that you need to get through the project. Now, there might be some areas that are going to give you some initial problems, like your face, and also I might need to do some more in-depth tutorials for chest, shoulders, and the upper arm, and also thighs and hips area, because I think those are the areas that trip the most people up. But until then, I think you've got a good start, and you've got the tools needed to get your weight painting done. Until next time, good luck.